Hi, I'm Paul Santinello. Welcome to the Upside, the show where we talk about all the good things that are going on in the town of Longmeadow. With me today is my guest, Angela Kaz. Angela is the editor for the Longmeadow News and covers the select board meetings, school committee meetings, and basically everything that's happening in the town of Longmeadow. So I'm going to put the tough questions to Angela today, find out what's really going on behind the scenes here in Longmeadow, and expose some of the issues that are the hot issues in town. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You know, before Angela, Hope Trombley was our editor, and I tried to get Hope on the show, but our schedules never connected. So what we do on this show is we talk literally about all the good things that go on, and we've had various topics of, you know, whether it's high school kids and what they're doing, and actually seeing an article in the Longmeadow News and having that person on, for example. Well, first of all, I'm going to interview you, and we're going to turn the tables a little bit because you get to write all about the select board, and I won't ask you who your favorite select board member is, but just because you accepted the invitation, we're going to say we know who it is. But when did you start at the Longmeadow News?
I started in very early September of this past year, so 2011.
Okay.
Yep.
And you went. I know you went to UMass.
I did, yes.
Right? Okay. And where are you from?
I'm actually from Longmeadow.
Are you? Okay.
I'm one of those strange people who grew up here but didn't go to school here.
Okay.
So.
All right. So you know what the town's like. You have a feel for the town, and so you've been covering the town for maybe 8 months now, and
just about.
Okay. And what do you like about doing it?
I love writing, and I love all the people I've met so far. I think it's just such a great experience to see the ins and outs of how everything works in a town I've known my whole life, but I really knew nothing about. So
did you ever go to a town meeting while you were growing up here?
Never.
Never. Okay. So now that we know that you never went to a town meeting, now you have. Mm-hmm. And what do you think?
They're something else.
Yes, they are something else. So you saw the fall town meeting and then the special town meeting we had, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you can see how the town argues, you know, we'll pass like multi-million-dollar things, and then we argue about $1,500 or something. Pretty interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There was one argument about grass, I believe, this past meeting.
About the grass. I'll have to go back and look at that one about grass. All right, so we'll figure that one out. I think it might have been the storm damage issues and stuff like that.
Possibly.
So now you cover all the towns. You're learning about what's making us tick here, okay, in the hot button issues type of things. What are some of the favorite? What are things besides politics? What's one of the favorite things that you've covered so far that you've done?
I love covering the schools. There's so many great things going on. I had to cover a lecture about fertilizer at Blueberry Hill, which was given by a former NFL player.
Really?
Which is very interesting.
A fertilizer from a former NFL player. Mm-hmm. Wow. Was he giving it to the kids?
He was, yes.
Oh, okay. Why? Because that's kind of like a strange combination, NFL
it was.
Player. So giving kids and talk about fertilizer, so obviously it must have been science, or we'll chalk it up to that as opposed to selling something. Yeah. And what else? What else do you see going around town?
I mean, right when I started in this position was the big winter storm that we got. So it was kind of interesting to see how quickly the town was able to recover from that, and just sort of the process that everyone went through when it came to storm repairs. So
isn't it kind of amazing that everything kind of just shut down for a week, and you got to cover? I mean, I got to kind of be involved in some of it in terms of knowing, you know, what areas were getting lit, or, you know, as we had a meeting almost every day that week of, talking about the storm damage, but you got to cover what was going on and how it affected people. And
it was amazing to see how well people could improvise with so little. I mean, no internet, no computers, and yet we put out a newspaper, and the town held meetings, and everyone still got together in the warming shelter. So it was a great thing to see, I think. Yeah,
and it's actually, you know, when you look around, there's, you know, we had a meeting, and I don't know if you were there, where we talked about some of the things that, not that went wrong, because as I said, no one was prepared for this. There was no city or town. No city or town is prepared for, you know, maybe in the tornado belt you're prepared for a tornado. So if you look at Wilbraham or Springfield or Munson, you know, you can't perceive that happening in this area. And I don't think anybody, as bad as we knew a storm could be, would ever expected the whole town to be out of power for a week and not being able to go get gas and the local gas. You know, you don't think about those things, and you know, having to drive, you know, 15 minutes to go find a gas station or something, and then, you know, hopefully it didn't run out while you're in line. So, but from my perspective, was how well behaved the town was, and I don't mean I don't want to sound parochial with it, but just, really the people inviting people over to their houses if someone had a generator. I invited people to my house, other people invited me to their house type of thing. And it was just, that's the part that I saw. And, like I said, you got to cover it from a different perspective of what's going on in the community. And you got to see some things that, even our forum, you were at the forum that we had.
Yes, I was.
For as much as life was interrupted, that wasn't quite, there weren't pitchforks and
there could have been
torches.
pitchforks.
Yeah, there could have been. I mean, and I know in other towns, because I talked to East Long Meadow Selectmen quite a bit, and they had National Grid, which is a little bit different. And we had, I know Springfield, some people in Springfield were complaining that we actually had the Northeast Utilities vice president or whatever his title was here, when they couldn't get him. And we actually had him on the phone for 3 days in a row prior to that, talking about what our progress was and that type of thing. So you've had some changes at the Long Meadow News.
Yes.
Okay, it's no longer the sleepy little paper.
We have color now.
We have color. So you've ruined things in real life. What do you see happening at the Long Meadow News that might be different from, and I know you haven't been there that long, but different of how it was operated, because now you have a person in charge who seems like he's trying to move it forward, so to speak.
The big thing we're working on right now is getting a functional website for the Long Meadow News and the other newspapers that are owned by the Westville News Group as well. But I think it'll be great to have sort of a forum, and we can have more contributors from town as well if we have a website. So that's sort of the way of the future when it comes to journalism, I think. Yeah,
and you see well, I mean, that make your job probably a little bit easier too, because you could put things up more or quicker, I should say, as they happen, as opposed to once a week when the paper comes out.
Right, because a weekly paper is great, but if something's happening and people need to know about it, it's a lot easier to post it on a website. Right.
So if you went to go write about this appearance today and how wonderful it is and everything, there's a cutoff date though. So what I mean in the challenges facing a weekly is that your cutoff date is what day of the week normally?
I mean, we send it out to be printed on Tuesday nights.
Right. So if you cover something Tuesday night, it might not be in until a week later that it's been there, it's over, there's no reaction time, and that type of thing, where your website might get you that ability to get like our last night at the Selectmen's meeting, we voted for a special town election, or set the date for it because it was a petition, and one of the questions is, when does that information go out to people?
In case you're wondering, it'll be in this week's paper.
Okay, and that was one of the questions we had, was what are those cut out, how are we going to let people know about it? So that's good to know. So what else, what do you like doing about your job?
I
mean, where did you? I know you went to UMass. So out of UMass, did you have a job before coming to Long Meadow News?
I was a waitress.
Okay.
I worked on the newspaper at UMass, but in the interim, I waitressed at Lido's in Springfield. Okay. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I've been there many times. Very good restaurant. Yes, they're closing, I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's
I got out at the right time.
Yeah. So, you would have got out anyway. Yeah. Okay. So this is the first gig. And we know it's not going to be the last, obviously, but what you worked at the college newspaper. What's the difference from working at a college newspaper versus working for the Long Meadow News, besides your 24/7?
I mean, when I was working in the college newspaper, I was in the arts and entertainment section, so it was very sort of filler content, not exactly anything that was pertinent to day-to-day life. But when you're covering Long Meadow News, you're covering real people, and there's a lot of people with a lot to say in Long Meadow. So it's a lot more people-oriented than.
Trust me, that's actually a very good quote. There's a lot of people who have a lot to say.
Yes.
That's very accurate description of our town.
It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. I love when people talk about what's on their mind, because it's hard to, in my position, it's better to govern when you know what people are thinking. So as far as I'm concerned, I think everybody should get up at town meeting and speak, except when it's at 12 o'clock at night or something like that. But, that's your right. That's what you should do. I mean, voice your opinions. So let's get into that. When you guys get a letter to the editor.
Yes.
And some of them are kind of nutty. Some of them are good, but I'm just, how do you guys vet those out and know that it's the person that wrote them and all that other stuff?
I tend to publish as many as I possibly can, just because I think it's important to voice as many people's opinions as possible. It's our town, I mean, we all live here, and everyone has sort of an equal right, I think, whether I agree or not. So as long as they're not too risque or inappropriate for the newspaper, I tend to publish as many as I can.
Okay. So have you bounced any?
Not recently.
No.
There are some people who have written me letters who have asked that they not be published, but I've never not published one.
So now you have people have written you a letter to not publish their letter or certain letters?
Their letter.
Their letter.
Right.
Okay. So they just want to complain. They just want someone to complain to.
Pretty much.
Okay. Well, that's good. So you're kind of like a therapist, except you don't make the money.
Right.
That the therapist makes. Okay.
I should start charging.
That's right. You start charging, you'll be better off. So letters to the editor, as long as they're not offensive or risque or that kind of thing. So you have and people are pretty much well behaved, even though they like to point fingers and all that good stuff. And okay. So in terms of the content of the paper, you're in charge of everything.
Pretty much.
You write a bunch of articles. I know there's contributors. There's also, syndicated type things that are put in there and stuff. How do you cover everything?
Obviously, I can't cover everything.
Right. But you cover a lot.
I do. I like to get as many people to start contacting me rather than me seeking people out, because it's just easier to sort of prioritize when I have people telling me what's going on rather than going to each school and each meeting and sort of finding out that way.
So you like it when people come in or you get an email and say, here, this is what's going on. So talking to the people of Long Meadow, because this show is probably the highest rated show on LCTV. At least that's what I tell people. Okay, so it's on my resume. If you're talking to people in town, how do they get a hold of you? The best way to get a hold of you, and we can put a graphic up and add it in after the show and that type of thing. But how do they get a hold of you, and what do you want them to tell you in an email, for example, about an event?
Well, we have an email address for Long Meadow News, which is probably the easiest way if you don't want to make a phone call. I tend to give out my cell phone number a lot.
Okay.
For people who want to contact me. I don't have a problem with it, but.
Okay. So what's the email address they would?
It is my name, Angela Tkaz, at thelongmeadownews.com.
Okay. Spell Tkaz.
Tkazz.
Okay, at longmeadownews.com.
Yes, correct.
So the Angela Tkaz at longmeadownews.com, and then you want them to describe their event.
Right, just the basic details, the when and the where, the who.
Contact information if you need to get a hold of them beforehand, that type of thing.
Right, okay. Pictures are great if it's a...
So even post, not just pre, but post afterwards, they can submit things as well?
Right, I love getting pictures from the community, because if there's an event I can't go to and I still want to include it in the newspaper, it's great. I know mothers take pictures of their kids and
really, just a little bit,
yeah, sports, and I love getting pictures from the town too. So
okay, so pre or post event they can get you, but if they want you there type of thing, obviously they pre-event contact information, all that stuff of where it is and their phone number if you need to get a hold of them. But after the event, if there's something that went on, they can submit pictures even online. Right, they don't have to mail them in, that type of thing. Yep. Better online. And you'll do what you can to get them in. Okay, and I know you do, because I've seen my kids have been in a paper without trying to be in a paper for whatever's been going on, and people taking pictures. So, one of the things that in our community, because when you look at the Springfield newspaper, and I won't. Will be nice, but you look at the Springfield newspaper. Long Meadow might get a blip in the paper this big in the second section or something about an event that's going on. So we have the reminder, and the reminder puts in one page, and I'm not giving them a commercial, but it's usually post information, not pre information and things like that. But one of the assets besides Long Meadow Community Television that gets the word out to people is the Long Meadow News. So the paper, one of the things we talked about after the storm cleanup is how do you get the word out to people? How do you talk to them? And not everybody subscribes to the Long Meadow News. Not everybody, you do get the reminder, but you don't get it all on the same day and that type of thing. And if your electric was out and your cable was out, you weren't getting LCTV. But what the Long Meadow News does for our community is give people the opportunity to get the word out, but also to get a little PR for their kids for that one little thing, and whether they made Dean's List or whatever it is. Those are good things in a community like this.
Yeah, the great thing about my newspaper is that it's hyper local. It's just Long Meadow, whereas Republicans, the whole area, and same with the reminder, but we're really just focused on the Long Meadow community and what's going on there. And as I said earlier, people have a lot to say. So it's great to get all those voices in.
Now, the one thing I will say is I noticed that when you come to a select board meeting, and I don't like this, you leave and I have to stay. So there should be a rule that says you have to stay there and suffer, because your articles will probably have a different slant after that about what a bunch of jerks they are staying out late at night. Yeah, how long they're staying there that night and stuff. So now that you, and I'm sure you're like my daughters or whatever, that when you were growing up, that there was no town government because you're more worried about what's going on in school every day. What do you think of what, and I don't want an opinion of like, you know, it stinks or it's good, but from what you see about the operations, because you're covering these meetings, you're covering planning board and all those little hot topic things. What do you see as some of the challenges facing the town of Long Meadow?
I mean, I know most of the focus right now is on the high school because it's sort of the biggest project, from what I understand, the town has really ever undertaken.
Yep, at one time,
So it seems to me a lot of what's going on sort of circles around that, and budgeting in regards to, I mean, we're spending this huge amount of money on the high school and how to budget everything else, and I mean, that's just sort of what I hear a lot of these days.
So when you're getting a communication from the residents, whether those letters to the editor or they write you something it's centered around the high school, more or less?
Mostly, I would say. It all kind of circles back to that in a way. Yeah.
Okay. Do you hear any stories of you know, about the economy and effect on people in town, or do you get anything like that?
I don't. The most recent thing I had heard about was the taxes, the property taxes. Yeah. But I've received a few letters to the editor about that.
Okay. And that's always a hot topic, just so you understand it. Because we talked about it at the meeting with, you know, the evaluation process is probably one of the most muddled things in the world, and you could have two houses side by side that look almost identical and they're valued differently. And and to try to nail that during a 2, or actually what's now becoming 4-hour select board meetings, it's hard to, you know, get that through visitor comments. Okay, so taxes, and actually you'll start to see probably some more of that next year as the high school actually starts to come on to people's tax rolls, because the brunt of it hasn't hit yet. So you'll probably get more letters to the editors around there. But is there anything that you like to see covered in the town that isn't?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you know, there's
in the meetings, or
in the meetings, or just, I mean, you know, you, like I said, you've been observing now. I mean, you're writing, but you're really observing before you're doing that, or while you're doing that. So, is there anything that you see that should be covered by your paper that might not be? Because, you know, that. Let me go backwards. Before I ask that question, because the you know, the Long Meadow News isn't. You're not trying to expose, you know, corruption, and I think that's a good thing, because there's too many newspaper people who are trying to win a Pulitzer Prize without trying to write the facts sometimes. Okay, so, but are there things that you would like to see covered, or like to do as the editor of the Long Meadow News that you're not doing now?
I mean, I'd like to know if there are things going on that I don't know about, because...
No, okay. Well, I mean, because you're covering a certain, you know, you have a perspective. And
right.
And like I said, I'm just saying, are there things you would like to do that you don't do or can't do, or...
I'd like to cover more sports. I don't do much of that.
Okay.
But I'd also like to make it to more of the meetings, because I know I go to as many as I can, but sometimes the timings of them are a little off.
If you want to see some of the intricacies of how things work, go to a planning board or a zoning board or a conservation meeting. Those things are so entrenched in state law and mandates, and that you won't want to ever go to another one.
Great.
No, but if you really want to see something that can get really intense and heated, and because those are issues that are, you know, those boards are mandated by law to follow certain things, and they have very little wiggle room, and you'll see a certain kind of reaction from people, and they're very educational, let's put it that way. Okay.
I should probably mention the one thing I would like to include in my newspaper is more columns by local people, whether it be select board members or the superintendent of the schools or any of the faculty and staff in Long Meadow. I'd love to get a weekly column and alternate different people for different perspectives, just from around town.
That would be interesting. Some people put their foot in their mouth, I would imagine, which is probably why they don't want to do it. And well, I think that's part of it, right? People are afraid to put something in writing that come back and haunt them?
I mean, a lot of people are sort of opposed to doing a column because they think if it has to be a weekly thing, they can't make the commitment. But I'd like to do something where it's sort of a revolving door.
Yeah.
So different people every week, just less of a commitment for everyone and more voices. So.
Okay. So what do you need to go do that?
People. I need people to express their interest.
Okay, but you want someone like on the school committee or the superintendent, town manager,
anyone in town, yeah,
whatever,
sure.
that kind of thing. So you want more contributing editors, just to take some time off.
No, just
so just make your job easier. I'm only teasing. Sure. So, but as opposed to just letters to the editor, you want something they can do on a cycle that's more, and it doesn't have to be. It can be informational and so everybody who's afraid to write it, they can talk to you about what you really want to say. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's not like an essay. I got to do 500 words, and
no limitations like that. No.
You're not going to grade it. Okay. So, what did you study? Were you a journalism major?
I was an English and a psychology major.
Okay.
So
the psychology thing didn't catch on, but the English, at least you used the English one, yeah.
Yep.
And the psychology comes into play with. So you are qualified for a therapist then. You can
I don't know about that.
Or whatever. Well, I don't know if the therapists are qualified either, but that's a whole different show, so we won't go into that one. That'll be a nice article from you, an investigative report. Okay. So what else do you want people to know about the Longmeadow News that they might not know that you want them to whether participate in or anything?
Just submit if you want something covered. Let me know.
Okay, so no, as simple as that. If you want something covered, you want to get something, whether it's a little community event, a block party or whatever, because I know Longmeadows did my block party one time, and all the kids got in a picture and stuff like that. It was pretty neat. So anything like that, just anything that people want to see covered. Now again, it may or may not be because of space, but eventually it might get in there. And if they don't submit it, it'll never get in there. Right?
Right.
Okay. There was something else I gotta. We'll get back to that in a second. So, again, to get a hold of you, they're gonna do Angela Tcaz at longmeadownews.com.
Yes.
All one word, longmeadownews.com. Do you want to give out your cell phone number?
Maybe not on TV.
Yeah, maybe not on TV. Okay.
If you pick up a copy of the Longmeadow News, we will have all the email addresses you would need for everything and all the phone numbers. So. Is
there anything that's coming that the Longmeadow News is going to be doing to, like you went into color, which is a good thing. It's got a format. I know it's being printed by the Republican.
Yes.
But is there anything else coming down the road for Longmeadow News?
Our website's coming out very soon.
Okay.
So.
All right.
More updates on that to follow, I'm sure.
Okay. And if people want to be contributed editors, you don't have to be an elected board member or on the school committee or superintendent. You even town residents you'd like to see, just to contact you. So you can become famous, what is it, Woodward and Bernstein, and that's it, yep. And you can, expose all the things in Longmeadow and the asbestos that we hide and all that stuff. See, some of the stuff will come back and bite me in a fanny, but that's, again, I can handle it. So if you want to submit an article or become a regular contributor, you can contact Angela. If you have events that you like to see or you want Angela to cover, would like to have Angela cover, you can email her ahead of time. And if you have something that's already happened, you can email Angela as well and submit the article with photos with some explanation on them, and she will try to get them in there as much as possible. And then the rest of that is really kind of filler, where you have those syndicated things and all that other stuff.
Yes, and we have a psychologist columnist and a couple other. We have a Rachel's Table columnist from Longmeadow and things like that. So if you're interested in writing a specific kind of column, that's possible as well.
Okay. What's the craziest thing you've covered so far? Or thing you had most fun at? Besides the select board meeting.
I'd probably say the Leaf Gala.
Oh, yeah?
That was a blast to cover.
Okay.
Great food.
Yeah. Okay, and you got to go and interview people, to get the VIP pass in the back room. And
I met a lot of the founders. They were very interesting, very excited to talk about Leaf. So.
Okay, and what kind of sports are you looking to cover? The high school, the youth sports, or?
We cover most of the high school right now.
Yeah.
But I'd like to get some of the youth sports as well, because I don't have as much of that in the paper. So.
Okay, and we're going to put you in contact with Barry, who might be able to put you in contact with the youth sports people.
Okay, that would be great.
So if you are in charge of a youth sports program, soccer, football, basketball, volleyball, whatever it is, lacrosse and all that other fun stuff, contact Angela. She'd love to come out and cover your games and that type of thing. That's neat. And those are the great pictures too, when you open up a paper and it's Pee Wee football and or cheerleading or whatever it is, and that's a nice thing to have a photo of in the paper, and it really is. I think it's one of my favorite photos of my youngest daughter is her running a race up in indoor track, and the guy who took the picture just had I can't think of his name, but it was a great picture, and it just was a neat picture that I didn't take because I didn't think we couldn't get close enough and all the other good stuff. But so again, if anything you want to submit, contact Angela. She wants to cover what's going on in town. The best thing to do is let her know what's going on in town. So, and knowing that, I will keep that in mind and email you some things that are going on as well. So that's a good thing to know. It's your newspaper because you're the ones who buy it, and if you don't buy it, then she's out of a job. So that's the other thing. We want to make sure they buy it, right?
I'd like to keep my job.
Yes, we want to keep your job. And I think it's neat that your background is you grew up here. So it's really good having someone who understands, where the streets are, and and the saddest thing that's happened to this town, in my opinion, is Friendly's closing.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean that. Fridays after football games are one of the funnest things for kids to go do, or after school or something. And whatever they put in there isn't going to be the same as what Friendly's was. And that was a bummer. So we don't want to end on a bad note though. It's because there is a Max's Burger coming in, which should be fun to cover. You get to go to that grand opening and take pictures and stuff.
Very excited about that.
Yep. So are a lot of people. To have a nice place like that in town. So again, any information you like to get to Angela, pick up a copy of the Long Meadow News. If you don't have the email address from what we said, the email address is in there. I know that Angela covers a lot of things because I've seen her at a lot of things, and I just want to thank you for coming onto the show today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And actually, you guys provided some content, just so you know, for one of the stories that we had here. It was a story that you had, and not you, but Hope had in Long Meadow News, and so I do read things like that and try to give people when you see some good things. So get the information over to Angela so she can get it in the paper and cover the things you want to see covered. So again, thank you for coming.
No
I appreciate it. Folks, thank you for watching The Upside, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.